rather high, so we're gonna have to take the neck off of this. I saw a little split in the headstock. I don't know if we can get any glue in there or not, but if we can, we will. These have a screw in here, so I gotta dig that out, get the screw out, and I'll replace it probably with an ebony plug. And it needs new binding front and back. It's rotten, the classic rotten Gretsch binding. Why do we see so many older guitars with rotten binding? The answer lies in the composition of early plastics used in the manufacture of binding in pickguard materials. The main ingredients consisted of cellulose derived from wood, nitric acid, sulfuric acid, water, alcohol, camphor, and colorants. As the material ages slowly over time, the plasticizers gas out and leave behind the brittle, crumbly mess that plague these guitars. For this reason, celluloid is basically unstable. The gases that escape are also corrosive to certain metals such as copper, lead, and nickel, commonly found in electronics and platings and frets. I have seen this phenomena at work many times in guitars utilizing celluloid pickguards and bindings. I've seen braided shielded wires completely dissolve and crumble into a green dusty powder. I've seen it destroy pickup coils, fake gold hardware, plating, and solder connections. Celluloid is also very flammable. Okay, we got a little plug here that holds the neck into place. It goes, they finish right over it. I'm going to try to save it if we can. In the middle, my cordless drill. Yep. Yeah, it looks like it is ebony. Yeah, something with an aggressive thread. Into it. Meh. Don't take the top half off. Solder helps distribute the heat. Good and hot. Hopefully it'll radiate out from the little crude. Aha. Okay. Before I steam this, I'm going to seal the wood around the edge here so it doesn't soak into the, doesn't cause, sometimes when water gets into the end grain here, it'll cause little lines here. So I'm taking a little super glue, Q-tip, and seal up that wood so I can help prevent that. It's on there. We're gonna have to turn up the heat a little bit on this here. The tenon joint continues on from that point to this point. I can tell that the tenon joint is this wide because I can see the walls of the tenon joint on either side here. Now I've drilled a hole there in an attempt to try to get heat into the side walls, and these 3 holes to cover the surface here. So we're going to try again. It's going to be a real stubborn repair. So my plan is to come in from the sides in an X pattern like this, from this 45-degree angle or so, and just come in this way and come in this way. I'm going to tape over this hole, and tape over this hole here so that the steam won't get out, because I cannot get my my tool in far enough. I can only get it about this far, and it's almost nearly impossible. Okay. Well, we're getting that far in, and that's about as good as... That's the line we want to go that far. We can get that far, we know we're doing good. After futile attempts to get steam into the joint through the screw hole and other small holes I was able to drill with the Dremel, the 45-degree X pattern seems to be working. You can see where I drilled the holes in the side at a 45-degree angle. Some collateral damage. All of it can be repaired, and you'd never know what happened. Not bad. Some areas of the removing the binding you can just flake off with your finger. Others have adhered to the lower shelf of the binding ledge there, and small chips inevitably will come out. We'll have to fill those later. The moisture and heat have made a small separation in the neck there. I'm going to mix up a little marine epoxy and apply it to the center seam. Let it soak in. I like marine epoxy for small jobs like this. I wouldn't use it to glue the neck back on. It's just not traditional, but it's excellent for stabilizing areas that have gone through this kind of trauma here. It's also good for repairing areas of finish that have chipped away. I'm going to apply a little bit on that area as well. Along the edge, I'm using a little black lacquer to touch up the little areas that have chipped away during the removal process. Now I won't be using tortoise and black binding. I seem to have forgotten to hit the record button on my phone, but this demonstrates the process of fusing the two pieces of binding together to get the proper width with acetone. I glued the black and white binding onto the body, on the back anyway, and I'm using a heat gun to warm the tape. It'll help remove the tape a little easier without damaging the finish. Look, Ma, I'm Snidely Whiplash. So I cut a slot in the joint. I added a piece of veneer to compensate. I just needed a little bit to level off the ski jump at the end of the fingerboard and level it off. It worked quite well. I fished around my scrap bin and found a Stratocaster spring cover. It'll work perfectly to replace the end cap. I'm using a cabinet scraper to scrape away the top side of the binding, being careful not to scrape off the finish from the front or the back of the guitar. We will be going into the spray booth and doing some spray touch-up to take care of any collateral damage from that process. What, the base?
Yeah.
Alright.
He just choked himself to death. That's what happened at the paper. It almost looked like the wraps around it.
They let go
Yeah.
because the core broke. And then they all become spiral.
The orange tape I'm using is a rubbery kind of tape. I get it from an automotive supply store, and it's perfect for doing binding. I'm going to put a little wax paper around the top just to keep the amount of overspray down to a minimum. I've adjusted my spray gun to the very finest setting I possibly could. I'm spraying the very far outer edge of the front and back binding. Now I'm only going to do the very outer edge of the sunburst. I don't want to modify the look of the instrument too much, but I do want to cover up all the chipping and collateral damage from removing the binding earlier. This is actually a non-glossy base coat. Once I remove all the masking and sand away all the overspray, I'll hit it again with a clear lacquer to seal it all in. It should blend in nicely. Don't forget to remove any tape residue before spraying clear. I threw together a small tool of pine with a razor blade glued into it at just the right depth, and it makes an excellent tool for removing the finish from the binding. The next step will be to clean and sand all the binding, get it nice and clean, and fill in any little tiny gaps and uneven surfaces before we spray it with clear. But before that, we're going to apply some stain and some aging for the binding, I guess. It looks a little too slick and a little too clean. We want the appearance to be appropriate for the age of the instrument. Okay, we're going to do some relicking on the binding. I wouldn't really call it relicking. I'm just going to... this bright white binding is a little too new for this older instrument. So, yeah, we're going to stain it and see what we can come up with. I think I'll start with a vintage amber and maybe a few molecules of black, actually. And I'm going to use simply water. This is a vintage amber. A little bit of black. The black takes out the, it calms down the yellow quite a bit, but still has a amberish aged look to it. I think we'll go with that. I might melt up some binding with some acetone and dab that in there and try to close up that hole and get rid of that dark black line. Wipe it down. You can see the color difference, but it's subtle. And just like a little stain on that. Compare it side by side. Just give it a light wipe. I like the color, but I don't like the little sandpaper scratches in there. So I'm going to move up to a finer grit sandpaper. I don't want to see. I want the stain to penetrate and stick. And otherwise, if it's smooth and shiny, it doesn't absorb at all. It just wipes off like glass. Okay, sanded it with a 320. That's a little better. And this is actually the only remaining original piece of binding there. It seems pretty healthy, so it's a good reference, but it also ties the two. There, yeah, looks more comfortable to the eye, looks a little more convincing. All right, we'll go with that. Now that I've airbrushed the front and back edges, it's time to seal it in with some clear lacquer. Well, we're going to have to do a little more wet sanding, but giving it a initial buff will tell me where I'm. And you can still see the shadow there. I don't know if we'll ever be able to get rid of that without refinishing the whole thing, and that's outside our budget, unfortunately. But looks better than the rotten binding. Okay, I did some initial buffing. I need to wet sand it some more. The amount of sanding and wet sanding, especially for a black finish to try to make it look like half decent, it's hours and hours. And you have to be careful not to sand through. And there's like at least one spot where that is the case here. I think I can touch that up without respraying it though. There were big fat shims in here when I took it out, mahogany shims. And I'm going to have to recreate those and establish the proper angle. But for now, I have to do a little trimming here and to get it to conform to the uneven surface here. Old guitars, they're funky. Maybe try a chisel and carve that. It'll probably take a lot more than that, but we'll see. You never know. Well, at least it sort of sits flat now in the middle. It doesn't rock so easily. Okay, now to replace those big shims that were in there when I took the neck off, and they are big. I think I'll try measuring it with my, feeler gauges, my gapping thing. I'll just find out what combination fills that gap and add it all up and then divide it by 2. I just need to make this fit in there. Applying chalk to the tenon will help me determine where all the high and low spots are, so I can sand or chisel or scrape them away to get the neck to fit properly into the joint. This tool is called a bung hole cutter. It'll make plugs out of a piece of wood that you go into it. Right now we're going to clean out that the remainder of the schmutz that's in there. Cut out a plug. Cut it off in the bandsaw. Not only do you have to have the pitch of the neck correct, and of course the fit and all the other stuff, you have to make sure that it's in line. The strings will fall naturally equally on either side of the fingerboard. So I've taped the bridge into place in its proper location, and it's just a lot of on and off and on and off and back and forth and sanding and trimming and adjusting. As you can see, it takes a considerable amount of time and patience to get through that. But now that we're through it, we're ready to glue the neck on, and we're putting glue into the joint. It's much easier with glue. Glue and screw, screw and glue. Okay. Got a little blistering here. You don't want that to chip off. I'm going to work a little glue into that blister. Sit a little while. I do have another size here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it on that post. I think it's going to help us sometimes to warm it up a little bit. Not each shrink tube.